three kartavyas, or the three duties. One, accelerate growth so that the economy can global shocks. Two, help every Indian fulfill their potential through education, innovation, and job creation. And three, ensure inclusive development and access to resources for all, so that no family, no village, no state is left behind.
We are inspired by three kartavya. Our first kartavya is to accelerate and sustain economic growth. Our second kartavya is to fulfill aspirations of our people. Our third kartavya, aligned with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, is to ensure that every family, community, region, and sector has access to resources, amenities, and opportunities for meaningful participation.
These three priorities set the tone for budgetary allocations today. Highlight number 2, capital expenditure. This time it is 12.12 lakh crore rupees. That's what the government plans to spend. 12.12 lakh crore rupees. That's around 133 billion US dollars. And this is a record allocation. It's a 9% increase from last year. Now, what is capital expenditure? This is spending on building long-term assets, things like roads, railways, airports, bridges, hospitals, the money you spend on building these. This investment will help create jobs and boost productivity in the long term.
Public capital expenditure has increased manifold from 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 to an allocation of 11.2 lakh crore in BE 25-26. In this coming year, that is financial year 2026-27, I propose to increase it to 12.2 lakh crores to continue the momentum.
Highlight number 3, semiconductors or chips that run modern life. They power all your gadgets, everything from your phones to laptops to car defense systems. Chips are the new oil, and India wants to make them at home. So the finance minister has announced a revamped plan. It's called the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0.
India Semiconductor Mission 1.0 expanded India's semiconductor sector capabilities. Building on this, we will launch ISM 2.0 to produce equipment and materials, design full-stack Indian IP, and fortify supply chain. We will also focus on industry-led research and training centers to develop technology and skilled workforce.
The idea is to design chips at home, build equipment and IPs or intellectual properties, basically India's own patents in chip design and manufacturing. And this is a larger plan. The government's push in the electronics manufacturing space. It's significant both economically and geopolitically because today China dominates electronics and chip manufacturing. It has a stranglehold on this industry, and Taiwan and the US dominate chip design. India wants to become self-reliant in both these areas. It wants to secure supply chains, upskill its workers, and reduce dependence on imports. And for this, the government has set aside 40,000 crore rupees. This is over $4 billion, 40,000 crores. This is linked to highlight number 4, the focus on rare earths. These are critical minerals used for making chips and electronics. For India to win the semiconductor race, it needs a steady supply of. Again, China controls 90% of the world's rare earths, and it has weaponized this. Has throttled supplies in the past, so India wants to build alternative supply chains. And in today's budget, it has proposed rare earth corridors in 4 Indian states.
A scheme for rare earth permanent magnets was launched in 2025 November. We now propose to support the mineral-rich states of Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu to establish dedicated rare earth corridors to promote mining, processing, research, and manufacturing.
Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. These 4 states will get rare earth corridors. They will support mining, processing, research, and manufacturing activities. The aim is to unlock India's own mineral wealth and insulate the economy from external shocks. And why were these 4 states chosen? because they're known to be mineral rich. They only have mining and processing infrastructure. Also, Kerala and Tamil Nadu go to the polls this year, and typically union budgets lean towards poll-bound states. Highlight number 5, rail connectivity. For years, Indian budgets focused on highways to achieve faster movement of goods. Now, the same strategy is being extended to railways. This year, the government has proposed 7 new high-speed rail corridors.
We will develop 7 high-speed rail corridors between cities as growth connectors, namely Mumbai to Pune, Pune to Hyderabad, Hyderabad to Bengaluru, Hyderabad to Chennai, Chennai to Bengaluru, Delhi to Varanasi, Varanasi to Siliguri.
These 7 rail corridors will connect some of India's biggest urban centers like Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bengaluru, and Delhi. And these are called growth connectors. The logic is simple. Better transport will boost trade, it will speed up travel, and link key economic centers with smaller towns. Highlight number 6 focuses on small businesses, or MSMEs, the medium enterprises. The government wants to support them. It wants to cushion them from tariff shocks and help create jobs. And for this, a 10,000 crore rupee fund has been announced. That's over $1 billion. The fund will support small companies and businesses. Think of this as venture capital investment for India's small entrepreneurs. Highlight number 7, the textile industry. It's been the hardest hit by US President Trump's 50% tariff. Now, New Delhi has launched a 5-part integrated scheme to boost the textile industry.
For the labor-intensive textile sector, I propose an integrated program with 5 parts. 1, the National Fiber Scheme for self-reliance in natural fibers, such as silk, wool, and jute, man-made fibers, and new age fibers. Textile expansion and employment scheme to modernize traditional clusters with capital support for machinery, technology upgradation, and common testing and certification centers. 3, the National Handloom and Handicraft Program to integrate and strengthen existing schemes and ensure targeted support for weavers and artisans.
Highlight number 8, promoting India in biopharma. That's a 10,000 crore rupee investment in biopharmaceuticals. Biopharma is a specialized field. It involves creating advanced medicines from living cells, not chemicals. We're talking about stuff like vaccines, gene therapies, and cutting-edge cancer treatments. India already has an edge in these areas. The government wants to build on it. This investment will be spread out over a period of 5 years.
I propose the Biopharma Shakti with an outlay of 10,000 crores over the next 5 years. This will build the ecosystem for domestic production of biologics and biosimilars. The strategy will include a biopharma-focused network with 3 new national institutes of pharmaceutical education and research, popularly known as NIPERS, and upgrading 7 existing ones. It will also create a network of 1,000 accredited India clinical trials sites.
Highlight number 9 is content creation, and this is a first. The government wants to invest in training digital content creators, also those involved in animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics. Together, they're called the ABGC sector, or simply the orange economy. The government wants to invest in it. It plans to set up labs in schools and colleges for this.
India's animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics sector, ABGC sector, is a growing industry projected to require 2 million professionals by 2030. I propose to support the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies, Mumbai, in setting up ABGC content creator labs in 15,000 secondary schools all over the country and 500 colleges.
And finally, highlight number 10, developing India as a logistics hub. The budget has a new scheme, a $1 billion fund to promote the manufacturing of containers. The goal is to secure India's place in global supply chains. So those were the top highlights, the top 10. Beyond this, it's worth noting that the government has met its fiscal deficit target. The target they set was 4.4% of the GDP. Fiscal deficit, as you know, means the difference between what you spend and what you earn. A deficit arises when the government has to borrow money to meet its expenses. Now, the target for this deficit was 4.4% of the GDP. The government hopes to meet it this time. Another noteworthy announcement was on healthcare. India wants to promote medical tourism. 5 hubs will be developed for this, and states will lead the projects with support from the private sector. The idea is to attract patients from abroad, offer them high-quality treatment at lower costs. And mental health was also mentioned in the budget. A major facility has been announced for the state of Jharkhand. The national institutes in Ranchi and Tezpur that focus on mental health and neurosciences will also be upgraded. Plus, there is a push for women in science to make STEM education accessible for girls. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. And the budget talks about developing Buddhist tourism circuits. This is something that New Delhi has been pushing for to leverage religion and culture and build India's soft power. But coming back to the key highlights, today's budget broadly looks at 2 goals: to maintain growth and to support businesses, to help them scale up, to shield them from global shocks. And for this, the plan is to spend more and spend quickly. The budget has refrained from any major policy changes. It has failed to impress investors. The markets fell today. We'll tell you why in our next story. Stock markets reflect sentiment. And that's also true for budget day. As the union budget was announced in Parliament, the markets on Dalal Street gave a real-time reaction, and they spoke quite clearly. This was a special Sunday session for the budget. At first, everything looked calm. In fact, the markets opened in the green today. Investors were expecting a steady and pro-growth budget, one that would support investment and avoid big shocks. But that mood did not last long. As the budget speech progressed, investors started selling. By the time the finance minister had finished speaking, the markets had fallen sharply. Both the Sensex and the Nifty closed in the red today. These are India's main market indicators. They tell us how the biggest companies in the country are doing. And when they fall, it means that most large stocks are being sold. The Sensex lost more than 1,500 points today. It closed at a little over 80,700. At one point, it was down by more than 2,800 points in today's trade, the Sensex. The Nifty 50 lost nearly 500 points. It closed at over 24,800. Earlier in the day, it had slipped below the 24,600 mark. And this was the worst budget day performance for Indian markets in 6 years. The worst performance in 6 years on budget day. So what explains this reaction? What was it that spooked investors? Today, we'll try to break it down. First of all, what were the markets expecting? 2 things: relief and confidence. Relief for capital markets and a confidence for foreign investors. None of it was delivered in the budget. Instead, the biggest announcement for the markets was a tax hike. The government has raised a tax called the STT, the Securities Transaction Tax. What is this tax? What is the STT? It's a tax that you pay every time you buy or sell shares or futures or options. It's a tax that you pay on any transaction you do in the stock market. Now, the government has increased this tax only for futures and options. Now, what are futures and options? These are what you call derivative contracts. These are bets on where the market will go next, futures and options. And they form a huge part of daily trading in India. Today's budget targeted this trade. It has raised taxes on futures and options. On futures, the tax went up from 0.02% to 0.05%. It may look like a small number, but this is a 150% jump. And for options, there are 2 parts. And taxes have been increased on both these parts. The first is called option premium. This is the price you pay to buy an option. It's like an entry fee. You pay it even if you never use the option. This tax has gone up from 0.1% to 0.15%. The second part is the option exercise. This happens when a trader actually uses the option, when they buy or sell a share at the agreed price. And here the tax has gone up from 0.125% to 0.15%. Again, these sound like small figures, but for traders who buy and sell several times a day, this is a big cost increase. Because higher cost means lower profit. Lower profit means less trading, and less trading means less money in the market. So why did the government raise this tax? Why did they raise the STT? For a couple of reasons. First of all, the government says derivatives trading has grown too fast in India. Retail investors are putting a lot of money in futures and options, and most of them are losing this money. So the tax hike is basically meant to reduce speculation. It is meant to protect small traders. That is the government's logic. Secondly, the government also sees this as a revenue source, of course. You see, high-frequency trading generates huge turnover. So this tax means more money for the treasury. But like I said, investors were not expecting this. In fact, they wanted the government to cut the STT.
No, the market participants have, expressed a view that they'd like to see some reduction in STT, which is seen as the major contributor of the cost of trading.
So the budget delivered the very opposite of what they were hoping for. And the result was this. At least 15 of the 16 major sectors ended in the red today. Only one sector gained, and that was IT, or information technology. And here's what the market reaction tells us. They're not doubting India's growth story. They just don't like the high cost of participating in it. And today's budget has only raised that cost of participation, so investors responded by selling. Now, let's be honest, budgets are boring. Pages full of numbers, long speeches, and big words that mean very little to most people. But India's budget 2026 is also about something else. It's also about geopolitics. We live in a world where supply chains are weapons, where technology decides wars, and where countries do not trade anymore, they pressurize you. In this setting, India's budget zeroes in on 4 strategic sectors: rare earths, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and nuclear power. And this is a response, a direct response to global pressure and power play. Tonight, we'll tell you how. And we're starting with rare earths. Rare earths are a group of 17 minerals. You don't see them, you don't talk about them in your day-to-day conversations, but your life will collapse without them. Electric vehicles, wind turbines, missiles, fighter jets, AI servers, all of them need rare earths. The problem is China controls them. China controls the processing of most of the world's rare earth minerals, not because others do not have them, but because China built the ecosystem much before the others. So India has decided to set up dedicated rare earth corridors. They will be located in 4 states: Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. And what will they do? Mining, processing, research, and manufacturing.
A scheme for rare earth permanent magnets was launched in 2025 November. We now propose to support the mineral-rich states of Odisha.
Most people over 40 will enter 2026 still using ChatGPT like Google. Don't be one of them. Watch this instead.
So this is how I became the most dangerous person in the room. One habit changed everything. I replaced social media with micro-learning. Now, instead of wasting time on social media, I spend 15 minutes a day actually learning how to use AI for writing, planning, brainstorming, the real work. That's it, just one skill a day. This is the 28-day AI challenge built for beginners over 40. Starts tomorrow. Tap the screen to join us and try the one habit that really makes you unstoppable.
AI, they cannot function without semiconductor chips. The US has already weaponized chips. It is locked in a chip war with China. India needs to urgently join this race, and that is why the budget doubles down on the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0. It's a 40,000 crore rupee push for semiconductor and electronics manufacturing. The focus is no longer just on factories. It's a whole range of things, from Indian designed chips to Indian intellectual property, Indian equipment and material, and Indian talent.
India's Semiconductor Mission 1.0 expanded India's semiconductor sector capabilities. Building on this, we will launch ISM 2.0, to produce equipment and materials, design full stack Indian IP, and fortify supply chains. We will also focus on industry-led research and training centers to develop technology and skilled workforce.
Now, India's semiconductor demand is growing. In the next 5 years, India will account for nearly 10% of global demand. 10% of the global demand will come from India. But chip fabrication plants take 3 to 5 years to build, which is why this budget emphasizes on 3 things: long-term policy certainty, domestic value addition, and design plus manufacturing. India's target is simple. It wants to become one of the top 4 semiconductor manufacturing nations by 2032. And now to one of the most repeated terms in this budget: artificial intelligence. That's our third sector. AI was mentioned some 11 times by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today. That's the highest ever in an Indian budget that AI has found mention. And AI is critical for any country's future. If you do not build AI domestically, you import intelligence and you export control. That's what you end up doing. So India has a plan. One is a tax holiday till 2047. This is for foreign cloud and data center companies, but only those who operate through Indian sellers. They will get a tax break till 2047. Number 2, funding for India AI mission and the National Quantum Mission. Number 3, a research, development and innovation fund. And number 4, the launch of Bharat Vistar. This is a multilingual AI platform for agriculture and rural advisory.
I propose to 1, support the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, ALIMCO, to set up and to scale up production of assistive devices, invest in R&D and AI integration, strengthen PM Divyasha Kendras, and support setting up of assistive technology marts as modern retail style centers where Divyangjan and senior citizens can see, try, and purchase assistive products.
This brings us to our next sector, and that is nuclear power. You see, India is investing in solar and green energy, but neither runs 24/7. Also, data centers require a lot of electricity, and that is where nuclear power comes in. India has extended customs duty exemptions on nuclear project imports till 2035. So no customs duty till 2035. This applies to all nuclear plants.
Nuclear power. I propose to extend the existing basic customs duty exemption on imports of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity.
This is important because nuclear projects are expensive. They're capital heavy and slow to scale. And with this move, the government is trying to reduce costs. It gives companies certainty and it opens the door for private participation. India currently gets only about 3% of its nuclear power from plants. Only about 3% of its power, rather, from nuclear plants. But the long-term target is ambitious. The goal is to build 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047. 100 gigawatts. Let me put that in context. 1 gigawatt is enough to power approximately 700,000 to 1 million homes. India's current capacity is 8.8 gigawatts. The aim is to take it up to 100. So this is a very ambitious target and a massive bet. And there's one more important move in the budget. Customs duty reforms. India has cut tariffs on key capital goods and raw materials, especially those needed for critical mineral processing, lithium-ion batteries, solar glass, and rare earth inputs like monazite. The message is clear: lower input costs and stronger domestic manufacturing.
It is proposed to provide basic customs duty exemption to the import of capital goods required for the processing of critical minerals in India.
This also helps exporters hit by US tariff pressure. And there's another US angle to this as well. India is in the middle of negotiating a trade deal with Washington. And one of America's big demands has been this: lower input costs and more open supply chains. So India is signaling alignment. If you put all these things together, Here's what the budget says. Economic policy and geopolitics are inseparable. India is responding to China's control over rare earths, America's chip restrictions, the global AI arms race, and energy insecurity. This budget is not about instant results. It's about reducing strategic dependence and securing supply chains. So you could say that India is not just budgeting for growth, it is budgeting for power in a divided world. Now let's talk about defense. Traditionally, defense gets the largest share of the budget, and this year is no exception. In fact, the numbers have only grown bigger. A record 7.85 lakh crore rupees has been allocated for defense. 7.85 lakh crores is more than 80 billion US dollars, 80. It's the highest ever in India. And what stands out in this is the money for new weapons. India is spending big on upgrades. We're talking about more than $23 billion. This is a clear signal of intent. India is prioritizing military upgrades, and the timing is crucial. Last year, during Operation Sindoor, India found itself in a military standoff with Pakistan. At the same time, the challenge from China has not eased. Together, this defines India's threat landscape, and it explains the higher spending on boosting defense. Our next report gives you a breakdown on how this money will be spent.
India has unveiled its biggest ever defense budget, 7.85 lakh crore rupees, or about $86 billion. That is up from 6.81 lakh crore last year. That's around $74 billion. But this number is not just about size, it signals a shift in mindset, from reactive defense to long-term preparation. From managing borders to modernizing battle readiness. Let us break this down. Out of that 7.85 lakh crore, 2.2 lakh crore has been set aside for capital expenditure. What does that mean? Capital expenditure, or CapEx, is the money spent on buying new weapons. New aircraft, new tanks, new submarines, new systems for surveillance, targeting, and response. This is money to build the future military, and the increase is significant. Last year, this figure was 1.86 lakh crore. This year, 2.2 lakh crore, or about 23 billion. That is an 18% increase in 1 year. Why now? The answer lies in India's threat landscape. In May last year, India and Pakistan exchanged artillery and missile fire. The standoff lasted 4 days, but it pushed both sides to the edge and took both armies back to war postures. Pakistan responded by raising its defense budget by 20%. India has responded by spending smarter and heavier, not just on force levels, but on advanced platforms. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made it clear this is about modernizing all three services: the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And the roadmap is already visible. India has cleared a massive fighter jet deal, 114 Rafales to be acquired and co-produced with France. The price tag? In billions of dollars. But more importantly, this fills a long-standing gap in air power. Then there is the submarine deal with Germany. It is still being finalized. But if it is signed, it will be one of the largest defense agreements in India's history. For years, one of the biggest criticisms of India's defense budget was this: too much went to salaries and pensions. Less than a third of India's defense spending was used for buying new equipment. The rest went into fixed costs, like salaries, pensions, and administrative overheads. This year, the shift is clear. 2.2 lakh crore rupees will be going directly into new assets. That is a deliberate rebalancing. And it is happening alongside another major change. India is shifting away from imports and pushing for domestic production. Make in India now applies to missiles, drones, artillery, naval vessels, and AI-based defense systems. What India is trying to do now is build a self-reliant defense ecosystem, not just rely on foreign technology, but build it, design it, test it, and deploy it. That means investing in research, in the domestic industry, and in skilled manpower. This budget does not give us full details on R&D spending, but it does send a signal to defense startups and PSUs to gear up. There is another thing worth noting. India's strategic posture is also evolving, from border security to maritime dominance, from low-end skirmishes to high-tech deterrence. This means creating space for new technologies, from satellites and space-based systems to cyber defense units and autonomous platforms. This budget begins to fund that transition, but ultimately, it all comes down to execution.
So that was our defense allocation. Now let's talk about the Ministry of External Affairs. About 22,118 crore rupees have been allocated to India's foreign ministry. That's an increase of 7.8%. And where does this money go? On a whole lot of things, but a quarter of it is given to other countries, especially those in the neighborhood, countries like Bhutan. This year it is set to receive 40% of India's foreign aid, just Bhutan. Sri Lanka and Nepal will also get more funds, but aid for Bangladesh has been cut into half. Our next report tells you why.
Let's begin with the headline. In Budget 2026 to 27, India has set aside 5,685 crore rupees as grants and development aid to foreign countries. This money comes under the Ministry of External Affairs, whose total budget now stands at 22,118 crore rupees, up from last year. Now this is strategic spending, because India lives in a tough neighborhood. Unstable governments, military coups, debt traps and Chinese influence. So India follows what it calls the neighborhood first policy. The logic is simple. If your neighborhood is unstable, your house will never be safe. This aid gives India diplomatic leverage. The biggest beneficiary is Bhutan, which gets 2,288 crore rupees in this budget. That's almost 40% of India's total foreign aid. Why? Because Bhutan isn't just a neighbor, it's a strategic partner. India builds Bhutan's hydropower projects and then buys that electricity. India also helps fund Bhutan's development plans. And here's the key point. Every dam India builds in Bhutan is also a strategic buffer against China. So, New Delhi is doubling down on its most reliable neighbor. Next comes Nepal, which will get 800 crore rupees, slightly lower than last year's revised estimate. Nepal matters because it sits right on India's northern border. Political instability there spills over quickly, and China has been aggressively courting Kathmandu. So, India is trying keeping Nepal close. Then there's Sri Lanka, which will get 400 crore rupees. That's up by 100 crores from 2025. Remember, India stepped in when Sri Lanka was collapsing economically. This monetary increase signals that India wants Sri Lanka to recover, but without falling back into China's debt trap. Aid to Afghanistan has also been increased to 150 crore rupees. This is important. It comes after India upgraded its mission in Kabul and welcomed Taliban ministers. New Delhi has continued development projects across Afghanistan. This tells us India is taking a pragmatic approach. No grand statements or recognition drama, just quiet engagement, because Afghanistan still matters for regional security. Now on to the budget cuts. Bangladesh's aid has been slashed to 60 crore rupees. Last year it was 100 crore. Under the Muhammad Yunus regime, there's been political unrest, attacks on minorities, anti-India protests, and a visible tilt towards Pakistan. India has raised concerns repeatedly, and Prime Minister Modi raised it directly with Bangladesh's leadership. So the message in this budget is blunt. Strategic distance has a financial cost. Also, aid to Maldives has dropped to 550 crore rupees. To Myanmar has also fallen to 300 crore rupees. Another major cut is for the Chabahar port in Iran. Last year, India allocated 400 crore rupees in revised estimates. This year, it is zero. Why? Because of US sanctions on Iran. India's waiver to work on Chabahar expires in April. So, this is strategic realism. India sees Chabahar as crucial, but for now, it has hit the pause button on it. New Delhi is also spending abroad beyond South Asia. Africa gets 225 crore rupees. Latin America sees an increase to 120 crore rupees. Disaster relief stays at 80 crore rupees. This shows India wants to be seen as a global South partner, not just a regional power. So what does this budget signify? In today's world, foreign policy isn't just written in speeches, it's also written.
Save time creating content and generate a high-quality clone of your voice with 11 Labs. Change the way you record podcasts, voiceovers, and branded content with the #1 AI-powered voice-generating technology. Stop searching for the perfect voice and stop wasting time re-recording take after take. Try 11 Labs for free and start elevating your content today.
Coffee, that might get more expensive. And some luxury goods will also become costlier. Our next report breaks it down.
Every year, India's union budget arrives with a promise. Lower costs, better access, more opportunities. But the reality is always more complex, because every tax cut has a trade-off. Every relief comes with a cost somewhere else. The 2026 budget is no different. Here's what just got cheaper and what's about to cost you more. First, the good news. If you or someone you know is battling cancer, there's relief. The government has scrapped import duties on cancer drugs. These aren't your everyday medicines. They are often imported, expensive, and out of reach for many families. Now, they'll cost less.
To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines. I propose also to add 7 more rare diseases for the purposes of exempting import duties.
But healthcare isn't the only area that stands to benefit. Overseas tour packages will now be cheaper. The government has cut the tax collected at source. That reduces the upfront cost for travelers. Foreign education is also going to be more affordable.
I propose to reduce TCS rate for purposes under the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, popularly known as LRS, from 5% to 2%.
Households, there are savings on everyday items. Microwave ovens and their components will cost less after customs duties were reduced. Lower manufacturing costs could mean lower prices at retail. There's also strategic relief in aviation.
It is proposed to exempt basic customs duty on raw materials imported for the manufacture of parts of aircraft to be used in maintenance, repair, or overall requirements by units in the defense sector.
The push for clean mobility all remains. Lithium-ion cells and energy transition equipment continue to have zero basic customs duty. That keeps battery costs down for electric two-wheelers, cars, and buses. And for frequent travelers, there's a change worth noting. Personal imports like laptops, mobile phones, and